Prayer by Councilman Ungeyer.
She's not here. Coming in.
Here she goes. Heavenly Father, in a world often filled with challenges and uncertainties, there are times when we all need greater support and care. It's during these times that we seek you as an invaluable source of solace and strength, especially with the recent tragic events in New Orleans and Las Vegas. In these moments of sorrow and grief, we seek your presence for those who are hurting. Provide the comfort that only you can give. May those affected find refuge in your boundless love and assurance in their darkest hours. In Philippians 4:7, it states, "The peace of God, which passes all understanding, shall keep your hearts and minds." Thank you for your profound peace and calmness that is beyond human comprehension, that can be experienced even in difficult situations. May we all find optimism in your promises and strength in your word. Let your wisdom be a guiding light, illuminating our way and helping us to make sound decisions. In this new year, 2025, help us to be strong leaders, addressing the needs of our community and wisdom with understanding. As we reflect here on our town and on our nation, we ask that you guide us and help us to make a positive impact on all those that we serve. And we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Sorry about that. I didn't realize Lori wasn't in the room yet. Sorry, Lori. Sorry. Roll call, please.
Councilor Ungeyer.
Here.
Councilor Sakala.
Here.
Councilor Crisati.
Here.
Councilor Hendrickson.
Here.
Councilor Ludwig.
Here.
Councilor Mangini.
Here.
Councilor Nasuda.
Here.
Mayor Nelson.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Pisner.
Here.
Councilor Russo.
Here.
And Councilor Santinella.
Here.
11 members are present, none are absent.
Thank you, Sheila. In the event of a fire and emergency, there are two means of exiting the council chambers. Exit out the rear doors and walk a safe distance away from the building, or exit through the side doors, go down one flight of stairs, out the doors, and also a safe distance away from the building. Moving on to minutes of preceding meetings, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes for the special meeting of December 16th, 2024.
Motion. Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any comments, corrections, or concerns? Seeing none, all in favor? And the regular meeting of December 16th, 2024.
So moved.
Second. Second.
Any comments, corrections, or concerns? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? And the special meeting of December 30th, 2024.
So moved. Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any comments, corrections, or concerns? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? It's unanimous. Thank you. Now we're moving on to our special guest. I'd like to welcome Matthew Ritter from Shipman and Goodwin.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Mayor. How are you?
Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Mr. Mayor and Council, Attorney Ritter was kind enough to take time from his very busy schedule to be here with us. We put in a request a couple of months ago knowing that we would be doing the pre-ref committee appointment. And this is an area of the law that is complex. It's very important to our residents. These are expensive projects. This one proposed to be in the vicinity of $170 million. So we thought it would be very appropriate to have him here to answer any and all questions and sort of set out the time frame and the stages of this and what the rules are of the road as we go along. And as always, he's always always available to us. And he'll grimace, but to me, 24/7. I've spoken to this attorney over the last year since I returned, probably Sundays, Saturdays, Friday nights. He's been in airports. He may be in session, and he always calls us back. He's been a great attorney and friend of Enfield. And with that, I'll turn it over to Attorney Ritter.
Thank you, Chris. That's a nice introduction. Just one time in an airport, for the record. As Chris alluded to, I'm Matt Ritter at Shipman & Goodwin. We've been bond counsel to the town of Enfield for as long as I've worked at Shipman. So going back, I've worked with many of you in different roles here in the council, and it's a pleasure to see many of you again and to meet new folks. There aren't a lot of major timelines you need to be mindful of. We'll walk through a couple of them, but also let's sort of just start about the roles that you're going to have as you go through the bond process, right? You have Shipman & Goodwin, which is your bond counsel attorney, your bond counsel firm. And then you have Munistat Services, which is Bill Lindsay and Susan Karen, who have also been with the town for a long time. And those are your financial advisors, right? So there's going to be two different kind of buckets. What I'll walk through, I consider more of the legal process, the statutory process. We could talk about federal tax rules, although they're not that complicated when you're building a school. Bill Lindsay and his team are the ones that you want to talk to about what's our debt service profile? When's debt service coming off? What are interest rates? When's a good time to borrow? Should we do a competitive sale? Should we do a negotiated sale? Who should the underwriter be, right? Those are going to be questions eventually as you move along. You'll want to bring Bill and his team on. He can do number runs for you, pro forma, showing you if you borrowed the money, in a year, what would it look like, okay? So just sort of explaining the two roles. I'll do my best to answer some of those questions, but all that data, all those numbers, that's going to be Bill Lindsay's team. From a legal, from a timing perspective, you look at calendar year 2025, you're really not up against any major deadlines, in my mind, probably till about August. Okay, and the reason would be the timing of the referendum. And if Enfield wants to do the referendum, if you as a council, to mirror the November election, we have to have that referendum question finalized at least 60 days prior. So the Secretary of State's office has to get notice under Title IX, and so that does become a goal to look at. Traditionally, what we've done is we've done the public hearings and all that stuff, in April, May, June, July, and then when we get to August, there's a final resolution where we're going to do two things, and people forget about this because they always think about the bonding thing. The first is you are appropriating a certain amount of money, and then you're authorizing bonds and notes of a certain amount of money. And they don't always match up, particularly for school projects. And let me explain that really quickly. You're going to apply for a school construction grant, and the expectation is the state will help you with some of that debt service. So you may appropriate $175 million for a school, but you may only borrow a lower amount, if that makes sense. But as bond counsel, we have to make sure we appropriate all the money, including grants you receive, and then give you the borrowing capacity that you might need. One of the challenges in this space over the last 2 years has been price escalation. It has been issues with bidding. And so another thing I think as you go through this, you're really going to want to consider what you go to the voters for and what kind of school you want to build. Because we've had many towns that have gone to referendum, received passage, and then came back a year later and said, we're off by 15, 20%. So that's just something I think as you go through the process, be very mindful of. What you ask the voters, we get locked into. And if you need more money, it's got to go back to referendum, okay? Another timeline that I don't know if you'll meet, but just worth noting, you could apply for the school construction. They allow you to apply by June 30th of every year, and they will allow you to be part of the next calendar year process if you get passage by the November of the same year, if that makes sense. So I don't know if you're going to be ready for that, but if you are ready, and you want to put your school application in, you could by June 30th, 2025, so long as you had referendum approval by November 15th the same year. If you don't get your school construction application in, and admittedly that might be a tight timeline, I don't know, you'd be waiting till June 30th of 26, and you'd be on the quote-unquote priority list probably the following year in 2027. That's important to think about as you go through this process. And it's not unusual to see about a year lag from when you get voter approval and when you may submit the school construction application grant, okay? Then the last thing, and I'll be quiet and take any questions because I'm probably not talking about the things you want to talk about, unfortunately, but I'm trying, is Chris alluded to the silent period. And this is the one that, I'm glad to come back in August if you get to that point. People get very confused by the silent period. They essentially think that none of you can speak for 60 days, and that's not true at all. There is a prohibition in state statute that when there is a pending referendum, which for your town's case would be when the council set the referendum date, say sometime in August, you cannot use town resources to advocate for or against the question. Can you door knock on your own private time? Yeah. Can you have a party at a restaurant and invite people who are against the project or for it on your own personal time? Of course you can. Could you call constituents and urge them to vote for it on your own personal time? Sure. You don't lose your First Amendment rights. But what you can't do is go on the town website and put this beautiful, video that's up there on October 1st saying, here's why you should vote yes, or a terrible grainy video of why you should vote no. You can't use the photocopier at Town Hall for flyers that say vote yes or vote no. The biggest problem we see is your government email or the website. The most complaints that you typically see would be someone is emailing people from their Enfield government address. The referendum's pending. It's now October 21st. It's an unsolicited email. You send it out to the 300 people on your email list saying vote no or vote yes. Well, you're not going to be able to do that going forward. You can respond if a constituent emails you for information, but you can't send those mass emails. And the other one is the website. It's always the websites. And so the town's going to have to do its very best to scrub the website. It doesn't mean you're scrubbing meeting minutes or things like that. But if you have presentations that one could argue are advocating for or against, we're going to want to take those down unless they're buried in a meeting, minute somewhere. And so that's another timeline that would begin, again, the same night that you sent the question to referendum, probably sometime in August. Last thing is I looked at your charter, I looked at the statutes this morning. If you don't want to do a November referendum, you don't have to. You could call a referendum, you'd work with your town clerk. I think the notice is at least 30 days so they can get absentee ballots done under the statute. It's 30 or 45. I'd have to dig in a little deeper, but it would be somewhere around that time frame. But it sounds like, given where you are in the process, that would be probably a fall referendum anyway or something like that. And with that, I'll take any questions that you have.
So the presentation, when the pre-ref committee comes up with everything, the architect has the design.
Yep.
Having that as a video or a slideshow on the websites, not advocating for or against it, but this is what the referendum is.
Yep.
Is that legal?
Yeah, I mean, so there will be some stuff. First of all, until you get to this point where you're actually sending the question to referendum, the statute doesn't apply. I mean, at some point, you probably just want to be careful that it might be a little untoward to have just such strong advocacy, or not the opposite of it, right, coming from the governmental body that's trying to explore it all. But there are no restrictions. You could put a presentation on next month in all pretty colors with great adjectives about why you should do the project. There's no statute that restricts it. That's probably just something internally you'll have to figure out how you want to approach that with town leadership. But when you get to that point, we would scrub presentations. So there's a good example, right? A rendering is not in of itself advocacy. It might be a nice rendering, but if it says under the rendering that the school is falling apart, but for this renovation, the town will cease to exist. We must do this. It shall be done. That's advocacy, right? And so SEEK would look at they always say, we look at the adjectives. Give the facts. And I think if you're giving presentations that are factual in nature, it's not going to be a problem. The other thing that we typically do in Enfield is we send explanatory text.
Right, yeah.
Some of you have gotten that in the past. That thing is about as factual as it can get, and I'll look at that and with the town attorney, and we'll scrub it to make sure it doesn't advocate for or against the project. Some towns are a little more aggressive with their explanatory text. Enfield has traditionally been, no matter who the mayor is or the administration, it's very, very neutral, and we've helped do that over the years. Yeah.
Right. Questions? I would like to, if you guys are okay, include the superintendent, Macchio, is here. If he has any questions for Matt? None from Steve? Okay, but he's very much involved in this also. So there's no questions? Well, I want to thank, Tom?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Matt, from the standpoint of the example you gave about somebody who gives out an email and sends it out to 300 people, and it's viewed as advocacy during the prohibited time frame, what is the penalty, if any, for that person? And also, what's the impact, if any, to the town on that particular issue?
It's a great question. And the superintendent being here is interesting because I forgot to mention this point, but when we'll get questions, and you might think of things later, especially as we get down the road, you're such in an initial stage, just email us. But the referendum is not going to get invalidated because there was a violation of what's called the silent period. SEEK has no legal authority to say the referendum doesn't count anymore, okay? What they could do, is worst case scenario, is fine you. You'd be fined as an individual. They don't do that very often. The example you gave of you sent an email to some supporters, I don't know what they do, but, I can't imagine it would be the harshest penalty. But I think they'll look at how often it was done, the nature of it. Did you run it by the town attorney? Was it looked at? I mean, I think they'll ask those questions. But one of the other big changes that came up was, it's now 12 years ago. I used to say it was last year. There used to be the ability to send out community notifications, and the superintendents love to do it because they have a great email list. Well, the problem is, as you can imagine, they have an email list that tends to like school projects, a little different than the rest of the town. And so the law got changed to only allow now the community notification system to come from the town. In this case, it would be from Chris as town manager because he's the CEO of your town. And that is a change that happened about 12 years ago. So you can send reminders about time, date, and place. Nothing wrong with that. But you can't have a subsection of a community notification system. So superintendents who used to be able to do it prior to 2013 can no longer send emails to their individual listserv saying, don't forget to vote for the referendum. It has to come from the town so that it encompasses more people. That was the theory behind the law change 12 years ago. And we often will work with the Board of Ed. We will work with the superintendent. We feel our job is to advise everybody because, frankly, whether we want to make sure it's done right, we want to make sure that it follows the statutes. That's all we really care about at the end of the day. You're going to make the decisions about what you do with the project. We just don't want anyone to get in trouble innocently.
Beautiful. Mike?
Good seeing you. Thanks.
Yeah, it's good to see you, too.
Again, I
Yeah.
appreciate you saying that about the text. I mean, as a key point, we do take, I think, a lot of pride in making sure it's just factual. It's put it out there. It's up to the voter to vote any way they want. And I'm surprised other towns do it differently, but I'm hoping, no matter who's here, that's always with you. I know you do a lot of help us put that language together, that it stays that way, because I think that's so important. Look, whether you're for or against, you're on the fence, you're not sure, the fact that here's exactly what you're being asked to fund, because we're asking them to fund this. Whether it's state money, which again, a lot of us pay state taxes. So I think it's just, that's a key point, and I appreciate you saying it, because again, I think look, here's the facts, and this is what, it's up to you as a voter, for against, or no, or against, don't vote at all, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's so important. I appreciate you mentioning that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you, Councilman Ludwig. Councilman Sakala.
Thank you. And I know I can ask this question later when we get closer, but hypothetically, and I'll use John because he's sitting next to me. So John's on this town council. John's running for re-election in November. John puts on his walk card, all of the things that he stands for. Can he put on his walk card and I support the referendum?
Yes.
Okay.
Because you're not using town resource. I certainly hope not for his real.
No, you're not.
Yeah, exactly,
You're using
right?
your,
Yeah.
right, but he's currently
Yeah.
on the council and
Yep.
you're during that period, so
No
that's
restriction.
fine.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's just, and
perfect.
that's the confusion that people have.
Yeah.
It's just the town resources. And we get asked it all the time. And by the way, you'll get questions. People ask me, could the mayor write an op-ed? Yeah, actually, you can write an op-ed, and you might have used a town computer. It's an exemption. There are exemptions that are pretty narrow, but just none of you are going to run afoul of it because I just gave you the examples. It's your government email address, not responding to constituents, but just an unsolicited email blast, vote yes. You can't do that. Using the town photocopier to photocopy the vote no flyers, I can't imagine anybody would do that. But believe it or not, people do it, and they get in trouble for it. And the explanatory text is another one, right, to Councilman Ludwig's point, where towns get dinged on that. They get a little too aggressive. There's too many adjectives. This must happen. The world will end. It's beautiful and magnificent. You can't say that, right? It's not neutral.
It's a key point. I appreciate
It
you
is,
saying
yeah.
it.
Yeah, but no, you can campaign on it because you're on your own personal free time to do that. Yep.
Councilman Crissati.
Yeah, Matt, thanks.
Yeah, it's good to see you too, Councilman.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing up about applying for school construction, at the end of June, especially if we can make that application out and be ready for the referendum in the fall, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. So I think that's a very good point because, looking at referendum approvals, okay, 26, 27.
Yeah.
It's that long time frame. So
Yep.
I'm sure that once the pre-referendum committee is ready to go, they'll work very hard to get that accomplished.
Yeah, and again, it's all subject to the referendum being approved ultimately by the voters, but it is just something to be mindful of. And it's less than 6 months away. It's a tight timeline, but you can apply before. And that was a law changed by about 5-6 years ago that allowed that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
And I think we're at the point also, Bob, because of the tight timeline, that we're willing to hold a special election. So if it ends up being February or something like that, so we don't have to wait till next November. We've gotten ballpark prices from the Register. I mean, obviously, the goal would be to make November, But again, something like this, with the escalation costs, we don't want to have to go back.
Correct.
So let's do it right the first time, and then get exactly what the voters need to hear, and go from there.
Yep.
Okay, well, I thank you, Matt. It was nice to see you again.
Nice to see you all again. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, guys. Okay, that was very informative. We're moving on to public communications and petitions. Any person who wishes to address the council shall first be recognized by the chair and shall state their name and address for the record. They shall limit their remarks to 5 minutes. After each person who desires has had the chance to speak, those desiring to speak a second time will be permitted to do so and shall limit their remarks to 3 minutes. During public communication, item 7 on the agenda, public members shall limit their remarks to 2 rounds of 8 minutes each, or 8 minutes total. During public communication, item 16 on the agenda, if prior to 11 p.m., each person shall limit their remarks to 3 minutes. Public communication shall be limited to 1 hour unless extended by a majority vote of the council. All remarks shall be addressed to the council as a whole and not to any individual member. All remarks addressed to the administration of the town shall be addressed to the town manager and not to an individual employee. Public members shall observe proper decorum and good conduct and shall refrain from personalities and improper language. Would anyone like to come up and speak? Mr. Young.
George Young, 8 Holly Lane. I have given all of you a handout. Welcome to a new calendar year. First of all, let me wish our town manager, Chris Bronson, the best of luck, wherever and wherever his next adventure will be. He stepped in here to solve an immediate problem and provided the guidance needed to get past a difficult year.
You have to start over and thank me again, George.
No problem. I don't have a problem. Start the clock over. I'll start again. Okay, so I'm kidding. I'm kidding. In looking at the 12/16/2024 CIP updates, I was happy to see a portion of Ridge Road and all of Holly Lane still on the road's 2021 project schedule for this year. I'm hoping we will get some form of communication from the DPW or elsewhere as to their anticipated time schedule and what we should be prepared for. I realize that they are only 15% completed in the design stage now, and I was just preparing to move in 55 years ago, and it was an exciting time. I don't anticipate the same type of excitement this time, but I'm sure it will be eventful. On the same December 16, 2024 CIP update, the next item for the Enfield Southwest shows other streets such as Putnam, Pryor, etc., that have a fixed cost of $3.1 million, and it's 151% complete, it says. Someone could take a second look at that percentage because there is some work listed which is still to be done. The last item I see on the above report relates to the town farm road multi-use trail, which is from Abbey Road to Broadbrook Road. This is a grant which is 15% complete with a fixed cost of $806,400 as shown on the CIP listing. The town is responsible for the design of a project, and the state provides funding for the construction and inspection. The town approved the design funding in fiscal '22 according to the current resolution. Tonight, there is a resolution asking the town's council to approve a transfer of funds from one category to another category for $838,000. If you note, this is $31,600 more than previously stated, and that is because the council is being asked to go up to the maximum allowed by the charter as it now stands, without a referendum, even though the previously shown fixed cost was for $806,400. Why is there no resolution to increase this, or does this change cover it? This change will now leave approximately $99,000 for inspections and overages, they claim, because the low bid to do the job, which is reimbursable from the state, is $738,112. Why do we need so much extra when inspections are covered by the state? I believe Jack would say, you are taking money out of your left pocket and putting it into your right pocket. I believe he's right. We need to stop this absurd spending just because we can do it under the guidance of the charter. It is why I have asked the Charter Revision Committee to reduce the amount available for spending without a referendum to be recalculated on the net taxable value of the town instead of the gross taxable value as it presently is stated. That would reduce the $838,000 per project to only be approved by the council by over $90,000, and no further cap, and to further cap that spending up to $600,000 per project. We'll see how far that gets, and then if the council approves a referendum to reduce their spending freedom. Think about what that means tonight when they talk about the Woodsonia project and the difference between the gross valuation of that project and it is compared to what the net valuation will be after the town gives them tax breaks, etc. The council will be allowed to add that difference at 0.02% to what they can spend without your approval. It's happening everywhere in town. I'll stop for now. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Anyone else? Amanda?
Thank you. Amanda Pickett, Guild Street. Happy New Year. Thank you. I'm here as a mom and a resident tonight. I'm happy to see that there's an interest in supporting our schools, and that's an agenda item for the pre-referendum committee and the presentation that was just provided. I do want to reiterate a few important reminders that this is an existing effort and actually a conversation that we've been having as a community for quite some time. I know that there's been multiple tours that have been offered throughout our school buildings to see what the current state of our facilities are. I know many of you have seen those. I think the reality is, when you look at our buildings, there's been years of neglect. Our schools need support. There's no longer options to Band-Aid fix. I also think we need to remember that even when we make investments like JFK in the high school, we need to continue to invest in the repair and upkeep of our buildings. I also want us to remember that we have a model preschool program that I would love space to expand and continue to offer other families options as well. So they need just as much care, space, and attention in this options as well. I also want to remind us that it's more than just dollars and cents. I know that the special ed programming at Eagle Academy has perked many people's interests. Yes, it's attractive to build a facility that has the potential to make money, but please don't forget that it's kids that we're talking about. We can't build new facilities and strip away the staff and the support that it takes to invest in all of our kids. Facilities is one thing, but we need money for education and programming as well. I'm glad I was here for the tail end of the attorney presentation. I do have some of my own questions and concerns. I would hope that we would get some of that information as a board of ed as well, as far as what we can do during that process and like our role in that piece. So I'm hoping there's continued conversations there. So I do want to reiterate points that I've already made publicly, especially with this really tight timeline. I think it's very, that's a lot of stuff to happen in a very short time. I am concerned about the membership of the committee. So I want to remind folks this is a long-term investment in our community. The decision needs to be rooted in our kids, our families, and our staff. We have to let go of what we want and listen to the experts and those that are impacted. The reality is the neighborhood school design, it's not feasible in our community. Our sister school model has provided the opportunity to combine schools with minimal impact and actual opportunities for efficiencies in services and programming. Please listen to the committee that already did a lot of work. Please take their considerations into your future plans. By the looks of the makeup of the new committee, it is mainly elected officials, so I'm really hoping we do allow for other perspective to be heard and used. Please make a long-term investment in our community and not just for short-term dollars and cents. Before I end, I am going to add a personal note as a District 1 resident. I don't think that my road is on the road list. Guild Street, it is a major cut through between Steel and Post Office Road. I don't think it's ever been repaved. It is horrendous to drive down. You can come down Guild Street. We have many walkers for JFK and Parkman. So if you're adding any projects, which I know in a slim budget is not feasible, but Guild Street could use some love. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. Anyone else for the first time? Seeing none, second time? George?
Is it on? George Young, 8 Holly Lane. On the last item I'd like to mention is, for me, it's the collection of the fire district tax discussed on the December 2nd, 2024 council special meeting. I read all the comments and everyone had an opinion there as to the effect on the town if the fire districts collected their own taxes or if the town continued to collect them. Mr. Talarita, Thompsonville Fire District, stated that the town's rate of 3% is significantly higher than what a vendor quoted. Incidentally, this is a non-union vendor, and it would approximate a 2% rate. I would agree with Mayor Nelson that no less than 2% should be charged by the town for this service. Everyone was focused on how much work it was on the town's staff. As John Wilcox stated, if the rate is 2% or 3%, it does not change the workload on the staff. He was later asked by Ms. Brennan, Enfield Fire District Number 1, what the consequences for the town would be if the districts terminated their agreement with the town. He said it would be minimal. However, no one, including Mr. Talarita or Ms. Brennan, asked who would pay for those that do not pay the fire district tax. At present, whatever the fire district charges, the town bills, and then in August or September, it is paid 100% to the fire districts. No bad debts for them. With separate billing by the fire districts, I would believe that there would be many more bad debts and a collection nightmare for the town, including an impact on the town's legal office. That is a cost the town presently absorbs amongst the regular taxpayers. I would say that more discussion needs to be had before any contract is signed by either party. Truthfully, I doubt any resident would vote for another bill from the town regardless of the reason. Is it too soon to ask when the 2024 financial report would be ready? That's it, I'm done.
Happy New Year, George. Okay, any other? Zach?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Zach Zanoni, 6 Howard Street, Enfield, Connecticut. George reminded me of something that I wanted to speak about, but first, I did want to thank you, Chris, for your service. I was a little disappointed to see that you'll be retiring, but I hope you enjoy your life. I'll be honest to admit I had my doubts when I first heard you would be reappointed. I was someone who wasn't in favor of that at all. And I'm always humble and honest to admit when I was wrong. And I've been very proud and very happy to have you as our town manager over this past year. And I'm grateful for your kindness, your expertise, and it will be missed. So thank you. On the conversation of the fire departments, it was also brought to my attention over the holiday that we have a fueling station at DPW that needs significant work, in that the fire department utilizes that fueling station and they pay for the fuel, but they have refused to pay for any investments to maintain that station. And that is of significant concern to me. And as George mentioned, I do agree with you, Mr. Mayor. I don't think they should pay any less than 2%. There is a strain on the town, and the argument that there isn't from them, I think, is quite frankly a little ridiculous. I think we need to look closer at what they can be doing to contribute towards the fueling station as well, because if they were to go to any other location, they would be paying a higher rate because they wouldn't just be paying for what they would use in fuel. They would be paying for a profit for that company so they can make the investment in the infrastructure. So I don't think we should be asking any less for the town of Enfield, especially given we have millions of dollars in other projects that need to be funded. Their usage of the fueling station is a strain on the infrastructure, and I think they can contribute towards that if need be. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Zach. Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll close public communications, and we're going to move on to councilman communications. Councilman Santinella.
Yeah, I just have one thing, and I know there's probably several people here who are going to mention it, so I'm going to go first. On Friday night, we had the pleasure to be at a banquet recognizing the explorers that are associated with the police department. It was an absolutely fantastic evening celebrating some young people who have done a great deal for our community, who are very passionate about law enforcement. And every year we go to this. This is the third or fourth one that I've been to, and it's really a heartening event. I'm very grateful to have been able to go, and I know all of you were, most of us were there, and I just wanted to say these folks do a great job for the community, and it was really a pleasure to be there. So, and other than that, I have nothing else.
Thank you, Councilman Santinella. Do we have to start addressing you, Representative Santinella, at the next meeting?
I keep telling you, you need to just call me John. That's fine.
All right.
Okay? That's
Just
the
John.
deal. Just John. John is fine.
All right. Councilman Mangini.
Thank you. First, I threw our mayor to our town clerk. I was not present at the December 30th meeting because I was in Disney World, but I voted, so I don't know how you want to change that. I apologize. I wasn't thinking
Would
about
you
that.
like to abstain from that vote?
Did you read the minutes and watch
Yes.
the meeting?
No, I was with Mickey Mouse.
No, watch the meeting on TV
No.
at a later date.
No, I was still with Mickey Mouse.
She's abstaining.
I was with Mickey Mouse. So I didn't want to mess up the records. Thank you. And then I also want to echo John with the Police Explorers. I have attended those programs year after year. Tremendous program. We need to keep it going forward and thank the officers that are wonderful role models for these young people, and thank the parents of the young people that are explorers, and also kudos to them because they work very hard and they do a great job for the community. And I do want to wish our Mr. Chris good luck. And, you know, I know, but I just have to say it. Thank you. That's it. Thank you.
So, Councilman Crissati.
Yeah, I too did attend the Police Explorers annual event. I've been going to this event, I think, for the last 10 years. And once again, hats off to Lieutenant Pedamonte and Detective Ledger for the work that they do with this particular program. With their dedication and their commitment to the youth that are involved in this program is second to none. Officer Agnew, Wiley, Ryan, and retired Officer Rochette are all part of this particular program. And to see the commitment that these young people and the number of years that some of them have been part of this program is outstanding. As the mayor mentioned that, that he was getting so excited that he wanted to enroll, but he couldn't handle the physical part of it.
People don't, that wasn't televised.
I'm gonna say it because you said it. So, but it was a great night, and it's nice to see that some of these young adults are going to continue in this field of law enforcement, and to see the follow-through that the instructors have with these students, it's very worthwhile to them, and I know that in speaking to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Jim? Jeff? No? Lori? Oh, Jeff, go ahead. Councilman Russo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just want to echo those sentiments. The Friday night, the Explorer event, it was an amazing event. The video was really neat. Those push-ups and all the physical strenuous activity, I actually observed that in real time back in July when they were at their academy, their week-long camp. over at Westfield State University. So very grueling for that camp. They make it through, and it just shows the commitment that our explorers have to the program. They're in great shape. So that was a great event. I love seeing the explorers do work around town, such a value add to the town, the work that they put in. So that was an excellent event on Friday night. And then through the mayor to the town manager, just want to thank you for helping out with that construction cut through from Middle Road to Hazard Ave. So I thought they would just put like a chain or a temporary barrier through there. They actually put up a pretty robust, like big steel gate, which was more than I could have ever wanted. So I know the residents and people that brought that to my attention, they're very happy with that. So appreciate the help. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Hendrickson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through the mayor to the town manager, on the BOE audit, have we heard anything, or is there a timetable on that? Just
On
the audit on the BOE.
We'll follow up with Mr. Wilcox and see where they are. Thank you. That's a good reminder.
Thank you.
Councilman Ludwig? Nothing? Okay, Councilman, Deputy Mayor Pisner?
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
So I have a few things. I'm going to echo for the Explorers. I think they do a fabulous job, and my kudos to all those kids for what they do. A couple other things. We all know Lucien Lefebvre and the amazing job he does for our veterans. Lucien will be the 2024 inductee into the Connecticut Veterans Hall of Fame, and that's going to be happening on January 23rd. So a shout out to Lucien. This is a very, very well-deserved award. We all know what him and his wife Pam do for this town, and we are blessed to have them. Couple of other things. The mayor and I had the privilege, again, with the chief and his wife and his daughter, of traveling through town and choosing the house that was the best decorated, and it was so hard. So my congratulations to every house that put up lights. They made our job very, very hard. I think we made a good choice. And I look forward to next year, possibly. Who knows? But it's always a wonderful evening, and I say thank you to everybody who did that. I also want to give a shout out. Birthdays are big to me, so I got to celebrate a 100th birthday on Friday at Mark Twain for Vincie Reale Barcombe. Vincie turned 100, and she lives independently at Mark Twain. Cooks for herself, cleans everything. Her apartment's adorable. Go in, her tree's up, her manger's up. She's got the whole place looking like Christmas. And then this Friday, there will be a 100th birthday celebration at Parkway for Al Krupa. Al Krupa was a long time, he owned his own plumbing business here in town. So I just want to say happy birthday to Vincie and to Al. Being 100, it's just amazing to me. So I just wanted to give them both a shout out. So, thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Pisner. Okay, I just have a few things. I just want to clear the air. The fire departments never refused to pay. They were never asked to pay, and state law, a municipality cannot charge a profit for the fuel that is sold at the station. We can only sell it at cost, which got us in this situation. We are working on a resolution, whether we repair or replace the current, or we just start using private vendors where everybody would have to deal with it themselves. But I do want to be clear, they never refused to pay, and when they found out about this, they have agreed to sit and discuss different options. And then, along with Councilman Santinella and everybody else, the Explorers, incredible. And the auxiliary police officers, the value that we receive as a community from both of these groups is priceless. I mean, you see them at the parades, you see them at the 4th of July events, they're everywhere. Watching the video that Detective Petamonte played for us, I mean, it's eye-opening. It really is. It is something that I myself didn't realize, and to watch that was really incredible. So I did some research on it, and unfortunately, when we did the budget last year, the Explorers and Auxiliary was through the police department, and the $1,000 that this town gave for those groups was cut. So this is a group of people who have goals. They're trying to do something with their life. And Detective Pedamonte and Deputy Chief Kozlowskis started as Explorers. And I mean, talk about programs with a success story. This is it. And so I really would like to get a resolution on the council and restore the funding and make it a separate line item that we give $3,000 to the Explorers and $3,000 to the Auxiliary to help cover the cost of uniforms, the cost of their trips, their cost of their training, because these kids who do this, fundraising only pays half of it, and their parents have to write the check for the rest. So what about the parents that can't afford, or the people who are very much involved in this and can't afford to go to training? It's just not right, especially for a youth that really wants a career in law enforcement. We know how hard it is right now to find qualified police officers. Let's get them while they're young. And if this is what it takes, so I really would like, somebody to help me, and let's restore the funding, kick it up to $3,000 each, and they start in January. So let's do it right now at this meeting or the next one. So new cadets, I believe that's what they're called, can get their uniforms and their belts and, be part of the training and stuff like that. But I think this is huge. And, our police department is proof of it because we have high-ranking officers there. So
I will second that.
So do we add it to the agenda, or do you want to post it on the next agenda? Go ahead, Bob.
I'm okay with it. I think we should put it on next agenda.
Next agenda, okay. Councilman
The only
Mangini?
question I have, how do we know at this point how much? You're saying 3,000 and 3,000. Do we know that is the amount necessary?
I believe the Explorers budget is about $12,000, just the Explorers, not Auxiliary.
Can we
So-
get that verified?
Sure. Well, we'll get information for next meeting.
Yeah.
We'll get it on the agenda, so we have enough to put it on the agenda. And Chief, your input would be very much appreciated on this, but I think you see it as a huge value just by your words Friday night. So I want to encourage this, and I think everybody sitting here does also. And I don't think any of us realize that their funding was through the police department. So when they had to make the tough cuts, and I'm not blaming them because we all had to make them, but let's make it a separate line item from now on in the future budgets. Mike?
That's my only, I'm agreeing next meeting also. I prefer not to come to contingency, because if we're going to do it on a go-forward basis, it needs to be part of our budget. If we do it out of contingency, then we're going to have the same issue when we do the budget in a few months. So if we're going to do this, I want it at the next meeting. I also want it from, again, as we get told where you're going to pay for it. So I don't want it to come from contingency if we can avoid it.
Right, it could come from fund balance and.
Well, that's contingency, other than fund balance. Right.
We'll look and discern what we can. I'll share it with leadership at our meeting next Wednesday. And the
All right.
chief will be, I know, willing to do a memo and outline the reasoning for it and give us all the parameters so we have a full picture for the next meeting.
And I am not asking to take this from the police budget.
No, I
This
understand.
is-
That would be taken from the right pocket to the left, George.
Right. Okay. All right, well, thank you, everyone, for the support on that. So we will move on to the town manager's report and communication.
No formal report this evening, but I am available for questions.
Thank you. And did you have a question, Bob? No. No, okay. The town attorney's report.
Likewise, I have nothing new to report. Wish everybody Happy New Year.
Reports of special committees. Jim? You have two people you need to replace.
Thank you.
On the Joint Facility Committee, we have two people we need to replace, one being a member of the Board of Ed who resigned, who was on that committee, and the other being a public member who also resigned. So,
All right, so we're looking for a member of the public who would like to serve on joint facilities. And also, we have to have a council approval to put this on their agenda because the Board of Education,
I think it's already on the agenda, Kenny, from the last agenda, but if it's not, I will put it on.
Right, so
make sure it gets put
that's
on.
what he's asking for, is to replace the 2 seats, and the council has to authorize everything, so. All right, and then for reports of special committees, that's it. Good? Anyone else? Seeing none, moving on to unfinished business. There is none this evening. New business, the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion. Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Roll call, please.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Sakala.
4.
Counselor Crisati.
4.
Counselor Hendrickson.
4.
Counselor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Mangini.
4.
Counselor Nasuda.
4.
Mayor Nelson.
4.
Deputy Mayor Pisner.
4.
Counselor Russo.
4.
And Counselor Santinella.
4.
11 in favor, none against.
Sorry about that. It should have been a hand, but. Next, we're going to move on to appointments. Town Council appointed, Board of Assessment Appeals. The term of office of Andrew Urbanowitz expires on 12/31/2024. Reappointment would be until 12/31/2027.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Are there any other nominations?
Move to close nominations.
Second.
All in favor of closing nominations? Opposed? And roll call.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Sakala.
Andrew Urbanowitz.
Counselor Crisati.
4.
Counselor Hendrickson.
4.
Counselor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Mangini.
Andrew Urbanowitz.
Counselor Nasuda.
4.
Mayor Nelson.
Andrew Urbanowitz.
Deputy Mayor Pisner.
4.
Counselor Russo.
4.
And Counselor Santinella.
4.
11 in favor, none against.
Okay, thank you. Next is the Commission on Aging. The term of office of Michael Arnone Jr., unaffiliated, expires on 1/1/2025. Reappointment would be until 1/1/28.
So moved.
Motion to close nominations.
Move to close nominations.
Second.
All in favor of closing nominations? Roll call.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Sakala.
Michael Arnone Jr.
Counselor Crisati.
4.
Counselor Hendrickson.
4.
Counselor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Mangini.
4.
Counselor Nasuda.
4.
Mayor Nelson.
Michael Arnone Jr.
Deputy Mayor Pisner.
4.
Counselor Russo.
4.
And Counselor Santinella.
4.
11 in favor, none against.
Okay, Commission on Aging, the term of office of David Goyette, Democrat, expires 1/1/2025. Reappointment would be until 1/1/2028.
So moved.
Second.
Move to close nominations.
Second.
All in favor of closing nominations? Okay, roll call.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Sakala.
David Goyette.
Counselor Crisati.
4.
Counselor Hendrickson.
4.
Counselor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Mangini.
David Goyette.
Counselor Nasuda.
4.
Mayor Nelson.
Against.
Deputy Mayor Pisner.
4.
Counselor Russo.
4.
And Counselor Santinella.
4.
10 in favor, 1 against, no abstentions.
Next is Commission on Aging, the term of office for Priscilla Linehan, unaffiliated, expires 1/1/25. Reappointment would be until 1/1/28.
So moved.
Second.
Motion to close.
Second.
All in favor of closing nominations? It's unanimous, and roll call.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Sakala.
Priscilla Linehan.
Counselor Crisati.
4.
Counselor Hendrickson.
4.
Counselor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Mangini.
Priscilla Linehan.
Counselor Nasuda.
4.
Mayor Nelson.
Priscilla Linehan.
Deputy Mayor Pisner.
4.
Counselor Russo.
4.
And Counselor Santinella.
4.
11 in favor, none against.
The next is the Library Board of Trustees. The term of office for Sandy Nucio, Republican, expires on 12/31/2024. Reappointment would be until 12/31/2027.
Second.
Move to close nominations.
Second.
All in favor of closing nominations? It's unanimous. And roll call, please.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Sakala.
Sandy Nucio.
Counselor Crisati.
4.
Counselor Hendrickson.
4.
Counselor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Mangini.
Sandy Nuccio.
Counselor Nasuda.
4.
Mayor Nelson.
Sandy Nucio.
Deputy Mayor Pisner.
4.
Counselor Russo.
4.
And Counselor Santinella.
4.
11 in favor, none against.
Thank you. And then we're moving on to C, a resolution establishing the pre-K through 5 elementary school and Eagle Academy Therapeutic Day School pre-referendum committee. Somebody want to waive the reading?
Motion to waive the reading.
Motion's made and seconded. All in favor of waiving the reading? Opposed? Okay. Abstentions? Cindy, how'd you vote?
She voted to waive it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
All right. 7 in favor, 8 in favor, 3 against. Okay, so we are this is about forming the committee. So the committee is going to be made up of all Enfield residents, 4 members of the town council, 2 of which will act also as liaisons, 4 members of the Board of Education, 2 of which will also act as liaisons to the full Board of Education, and 2 electors with prior experience regarding pre-referendum committees or building projects, and 2 administrators from the pre-K through 5 grade range. So we've all had time to read this. We've reviewed it. The superintendent has been great and made several changes to it. Did the board approve this? You didn't vote on it yet. So any questions? Go ahead, Councilman Santinella.
Yep, so we would like to propose an amendment to this and have prepared a alternate resolution for the council to consider. We have been doing work on this exact project, and we have had a committee in place that consists of a whole host of people, including members of the community, members of the Board of Education, educators, and that committee has been in place for some time and has done a significant amount of work already. And so our proposal is to activate or continue that committee and make that committee the pre-referendum committee rather than constitute an entirely different committee and starting all over again, because there's so much work that's already been done. So we have a alternate resolution. I'm going to read it, paraphrase. Whereas it is the goal of the town, the Enfield Town Council, to provide the community with modern, efficient, accessible, and suitably equipped public buildings. And whereas the Enfield Town Council and Enfield Board of Education has recognized the need to prioritize improvements and upgrades to the pre-K 5 and Eagle Academy therapeutic daycare educational facilities and building systems. And whereas the town previously established a school modernization committee to collaborate, research, and give recommendations to the town Board of Education on this topic. And whereas the School Modernization Committee, after consultation with experts, qualified individuals, and qualified company, have had a feasibility study done and the results reported to the town and the Board of Education. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Town Council does hereby make the School Modernization Committee the Pre-K to 5 Elementary School and Eagle Academy Therapeutic Daycare Pre-Referendum Committee. The Town Council, Board of Education, town staff, and board staff that were liaisons to the School Modernization Committee shall continue in that capacity and will be liaisons to the Pre-Referendum Committee. And be it further resolved that any member that needed to be replaced from that committee who is no longer active shall be voted on by the Town Council after being advised on who is no longer available for that. So I'd like to submit that as an alternate. I think that this saves us time, given what we heard earlier, and kind of the sense of urgency that we should start with the work that we've already done rather than reconstitute the wheel. And so we would like to offer that as an alternate consideration. I think we're getting to the same place, but rather than starting at square one, we can continue with work that we've already done. And so I'd like to propose that, and I have a draft of our resolution for the clerk.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Are there any questions on the amendment to the resolution? Seeing none. All in favor of the amendment to the resolution? 4. Opposed? 7. Okay, back to the original amendment. The timeline, as I had stated earlier to Matt Ritter, we are willing to do a special election for the modernization of the elementary schools. There isn't a person sitting up here that doesn't believe that they need extensive amounts of work. And personally, I think having a special election for this alone puts the focus on this, and it doesn't get tied up or dirtied in a political election. And, you know, when everybody says it's about the kids, well, this is about the kids. So are there any other questions? Councilman Sakala.
Thanks. So I have a couple of comments. I am very much in favor of finally doing something through the pre-K through 5. And I'm happy that it sounds like it's finally getting traction. Feel like I'm a broken record when I say this, but it is incredibly frustrating to feel like we're starting over. We had a school modernization committee. They did yeoman's work over a period of time, met weekly. They met for hours. It was a non-political committee made up of teachers, stakeholders, parents, administrators, faculty, liaisons from the town, liaisons from the board. And it was a really hard-working group who, in consultation with experts in the fields and experts that we have on our staff, especially the ones in the Board of Ed side, had a feasibility study done. They presented that to the town council in, I believe it was September of 2023. The modernization committee came up and they gave us their results. They gave us our recommendation. And unless my memory is completely wrong, it was met with relatively good and positive reactions from both the board and the town council. And it is frustrating that now we're starting over. If you look at the makeup, it's mostly people from the town council and the Board of Education, with only 2 people from the community. Doesn't make any sense to me. And why do we need somebody with building, necessarily with building or pre-referendum committee experience? Now, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, on the building committee side, when it is a building committee, it's a requirement now under the law to have somebody who has previous building experience in that committee. I don't think it's a requirement on a pre-ref. I think we need teachers. I think we need administrators. I think we need parents. I think we need to have staff who are in those buildings, especially from the special ed side. We need John Daig, who's in there. We don't need 4 town council members trying to tell the Board of Ed what to do. It's their buildings. They know better than us. We're not going to take their advice on the trash. Why are we telling them what to do with the buildings? I mean, listen, I'm happy that it's finally going to get done. I am voting no on this resolution because I don't like the makeup. I don't like that the Board of Ed has to suggest to us things that they want to happen, and then we, as a town council, get to decide if we're going to do it or not. It should really be the other way around. They should be driving this bus. So that's my 2 cents for what it's worth.
Councilman Crisati.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just a few comments. First of all, I just want to preface to say that, I'm in favor of the school modernization program that's going to be moving forward. I am going to reiterate the point that has been driven home, which led us to writing this resolution, that we have the pre-K through 5 School Modernization Committee doing a final report here that everybody has seen. Everybody has seen, which has driven the superintendent and the board chair into their presentation. We're not reinventing the wheel here. We all have a common ground in common. Back in March of 2023, we had a committee that was formed to review the current model that was not working. Okay, 6 teachers presented. The presentation was quite compelling. The elected officials were strictly liaisons to the committee. And I guess that's the point that I kind of want to drive home. All right, and remember that this committee was made up by 8 residents/parents, 7 staff members who really did an outstanding job with their work along with John Day. They presented their findings first in April of 2023. They again presented the school modernization back in September of 2023 that Councilor Sakala had mentioned. John Day also attended joint facilities meeting, again presented this to us. We all have the information that's in front of us. The teachers that presented the Enfield, going back to the K through 5 model, gave excellent examples of how this model is going to benefit Enfield. Looking at some of the work that's in this resolution, there is no mention of an administrator from Eagle Academy or central office that should be part of this committee. You say that you're going to have 2 administrators from the pre-K through 5, but what about making an amendment to at least have representation on this committee from Eagle Academy? Now, one thing I am going to be mentioning about Eagle Academy. There's several members that are up here, and people are looking at it as a money-making program. Well, one thing that you're going to have to realize is before this becomes a money-making program, that it's going to cost a lot of money to get this program up and running if you're thinking that we're going to be staffing 67 or 70 students into this program. Now, these are high needs individuals, students. There's nobody up here and this right here that has any knowledge of that particular program that I would feel comfortable you making a decision without having somebody from Eagle Academy on this committee. So there are, a lot of semantical issues that I'm disagreeing with. Teachers, parents, staff. Also, I'm not happy with seeing this electors who have previous knowledge in a pre-referendum committee or a building project. I would like to see an elector having knowledge of what our schools are all about. Not somebody that's been on there that knows nothing about elementary schools. that's my frustration from the resolution. I am not against this program. I think we have to move forward with it. But I think in terms of the committee and the people that are involved in it, we have people that have been involved, and if we can also include somebody from that spectrum of Eagle Academy, I think that's going to be very important moving forward. That's what I have to say in regard to this. You know, I don't feel comfortable, even with some people that are on the Board of Ed, do I want them on this pre-referendum committee, along with our town council. If you're going to have people on there, they have to be qualified to do the right thing. So that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Councilman Mangini.
Thank you. Well, I have to echo my colleagues. I will be voting no on this resolution as well. We are reinventing the wheel, which is very disturbing. It seems to me that this council, whenever there's a project or an issue that comes forward, we throw away the bathwater with the baby because we want to redo it again, which is wrong. And like Councilman Crissati just mentioned, we do need to move forward. We do need to have our schools up to par, to be where they should be in their standard. But again, with the Eagle Academy, that is a very, very intricate, detailed area of education, and we most definitely do need professionals experienced in that area to be able to weigh in on these types of matters. So I'm going to say no. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Mangini. So I will be supporting this because I think everybody knows me by now. I don't like talking about things. I like doing things. Our grammar schools do need a ton of work. Bob, your points are very valid. I agree with you. Every single person will have a voice when they come. John Daig, he will come. He is a wealth of knowledge. The Eagle Academy, absolutely, their input. But we are the elected physical body of this town. And the town made it very clear they're not okay with a 16% tax increase. They're not okay with out-of-control spending. We need to be there as the elected body who is responsible to the taxpayers to make sure this project comes in on budget, because the last board who was in charge of the committee that approved all the previous stuff that you say is throwing away the bathwater overspent their budget by $6 million, and we had to bail them out. And you know what? We didn't give the taxpayers a say on that. Not one word. You guys just agreed to write the check. So that's why it is imperative that 4 council members be part of this and we move it forward. Semantics, you're right, John. We want to get to the same place. But stumbling blocks, always. Can't just say, okay, you know what? We're moving on to the next chapter. Let's approve it. You know, we don't have to like everything, but let's move forward. That's what we're doing. Parkman Roof, we've been talking about Parkman Roof for what, 6 years now? It still don't have a roof on it. We're done talking. So I am in full favor of this, and I've explained why I believe the makeup of this committee is the best way to go. Councilman Ludwig.
Again, I'm not going to, but I just need to clarify, and I guess I probably should learn to let stuff go. But again, I can say, I'm going to say for the record, and I know I want to say because through the mayor, because the town manager was there. The Eagle Academy was never about money. Okay, it never was just about money. I don't understand where this has come from. Yes, they did a great presentation. The point that we're avoiding $4 million where we have to send our kids outside it because we don't have programs, that's an important financial fact. But it was always about keeping our kids in Enfield. That's what it was about, keeping our kids in Enfield. We didn't want a young person on a bus going to Willimantic, going to Manchester, going wherever it was. We wanted them here. And again, the story about the young individual was able to play a sporting team because now they weren't on a bus all day and they could go to play sports. And the other thing that, again, the other piece that no one likes, we talked a little bit about it. We closed Head Start and moved it into Stowe. And again, I'm not trying to be political, but if you want last election or every election, you hear all over the country, we want to give equal access to every child. Enfield's already doing it by doing what we did with the Eagle Academy and with Stowe. And oh, by the way, when we did that, and the manager will remember this, how much money we put into Stowe to accommodate all the requests and the concerns that were made by parents. That, I mean, it was close to $1 million worth of work into Stowe, and we did it over a number of years, but it wasn't just about money. Okay, I want to be clear about that. And if we're able to eventually charge other towns to come here, that is great, because the point is, we knew at the time we provide a better product than our neighbors. That's what it was about. We have good teachers. We have a great program. We wanted to expand it. But the first thing was to bring our kids back to Enfield where they belonged. So I want to be clear about it, because I have to admit it frustrates me. I keep hearing it's about the money. It has nothing to do. Yes, it's important. I mean, I'm not going to deny, because again, avoiding $4 million every year allows the board to do many other programs to many other kids. And oh, by the way, we're bringing our kids back where they belong in Enfield, not riding a bus going to another town because we couldn't provide the program for them. I mean, I think we need to be clear on what that program was. And so I'm sorry, I don't mean to nitpick here, and again, and I've said this to them since the chairwoman of the board is here, our slogan should be every child in town gets equal access to education. That's what we should be crowing from the rooftops, because we're doing it here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Deputy Mayor Pisner.
I'm going to support this resolution. I mean, I want to move forward with this. I think we need our schools to be looked at. And I do agree that we should have people with referendum experience and building experience, because there is a dollar point on this. There is a dollar point. I mean, we heard tonight, there's a bonding. We can't go over budget. We're looking at 6 schools, turning them into 3. That is going to take some finagling, for any other better word. And I know they want to build a new school, but we haven't found a spot for that new school. The spot they found was not going to work. So I think we need to move forward with this, and we need to look at people that have the experience. And I agree that teachers should have input. I agree that parents should have input. But I think sometimes our hearts come out and not the reality of what we can afford. We need 3 schools that are going to be affordable to the town. So I agree with this the way it is written.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Pisner. Anyone else? All I'm going to say is Enfield High and JFK, look at them. Every single person in this town is proud of those 2 schools. And that was done under our leadership, so just trust us. We want to get the grammar schools done too. So let's do it together and move Enfield forward. That's it. Jeff was first. Did you?
I didn't have any.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jeff. Councilman Santinella.
Yeah, so I just want to respond on the Eagle Academy comments, and I agree with Councilor Ludwig. I understand, and I hope I haven't given you the impression that I think this is all about wringing your hands and the money. I get the benefit. I get that we should be proud because we have a center of excellence here that we can share regionally with other. I do not want you to have that impression.
Sure.
I don't think that that is our caucus's impression. Okay, there is a financial element to it, and I think sometimes, we have an opportunity to be at the top of our game here, and at the same time help ourselves. So I believe that my caucus feels the same way here. So, but I will say this: I could speak with a fair degree of confidence that people in this town are not impressed with where we are with our schools and with our education. I feel very comfortable having talked to so many people, parents, grandparents, people who have kids in the school system, don't have kids in the school system. Taxes be damned, they want a good school system that represents this town. And you can keep running this, tax and spend, tax and spend, tax and spend. We deserve and we want a good school system. And if it costs us money, people came here by the dozens saying, we will pay more for better schools. And I am very confident that if that's what it takes, they will step up. The people that we represent will step up and provide that for our kids in our community. But that is part of the problem, and that's part of the uneasiness here, that we feel that it's going to be all about the budget versus the need. And so that's where our objection comes from. I know that we are all in the same place. I know we all have the same passion. I think we have very different ideas of how to get there. It would be nice if we could talk about the membership of this group to actually include teachers and members of the community and less politicians, because we certainly have the final say. But I think it's important to have more input. And I know we probably don't have the, we're not going to win that battle, but I just wanted to reiterate those 2 points. So thank you.
That was a great speech, John. When you guys were in charge for the last 2 years, you charged 1 year a 16% tax increase. What was the increase you gave the board? Wasn't it very minimal? 2%, 3%? So about backing up funding education.
Mr. Mayor,
I have the floor.
Okay, well then I'll take the floor back when
you're more than welcome to. And the next year, 6%. They also got a minimal increase. So all this talk about funding education, that's all it is. It's talk. All you residents got a 16% tax increase, and the Board of Ed got squat. Okay, the proof, they did it. So to sit here and listen to this, we want to get the schools done. Believe in us. Enfield High School and JFK are 2 schools to be proud of. The Eagle Academy has a great start. Let's continue building it and grow with it. So that's where I'm at. This is about the referendum, moving this forward. Somehow we got off topic here, but go ahead, Councilman Santinella.
No, listen, there's not a need for the sarcasm. I'm trying to make a point, but if you want to talk to each other that way, look, this is trust us is not. That's not going to happen. We built 2 great schools that we don't pay to maintain. Any family can go into our schools, and how many times? What are the conditions of those schools? We won't spend a dime to keep them up. You lay off 120 teachers and tell us, trust us, we care about education. I don't think so. You can't make the argument both ways, Ken. You can't. And so, we're not going to trust you. We're not going to trust you. But we don't have the votes, so we're just going to make the point. And that's it.
Thank you. Any more questions? Councilman Ongire.
I just wanted to make a comment. There are different ways that we're going to get there, and I believe everyone's concerns will be met. Every one of us wanted to see this project through, and it's not going to be one way or the highway. I think everybody's needs will be met when everything's done and finished. So if we're all patient and work with each other, we're going to get there.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilor Ongire.
For.
Councilor Sakala.
Against.
Councilor Crisati.
Against.
Councilor Hendrickson.
For.
Councilor Ludwig.
For.
Councilor Mangini.
Against.
Councilor Nasuda.
For.
Mayor Nelson.
For.
Deputy Mayor Pisner.
For.
Councilor Russo.
For.
Councilor Santinella.
Against.
7 in favor, 4 against, no abstentions.
Thank you. Moving on to the transfer of funds for the Town Farm Road multi-use trail construction, $838,000. This is, the town was awarded a grant through the State of Connecticut Local Transportation Capital Improvement, LOTSIP. Under the LOTSIP program, the town is responsible for the design of a project, and the state provides funding for the construction and inspection. The town approved the funding for the design in fiscal year 22. Charter requirements charter requirements only allow us to appropriate $838,000 for a project in any fiscal year. The low bid for the construction of the trail was $738,711.50, which will leave approximately $99,000 for inspections and overages. Budget impact, there will be no impact to the town budget. The recommendation is the council approve the following resolution. be it resolved that in accordance with Chapter 6, Section 8F of the Town Charter, the following transfer is hereby made from grant-funded project fund revenue, Town Farm Multi-Use Trail Grant, $838,000, to grant-funded project fund Town Farm Multi-Use Trail Construction Services, $838,000. Date prepared, 12/26/2024, prepared by John A. Wilcox.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? This is to finish the extension of the bike trail on Town Farm Road. That's a pretty big success. I did notice DPW went out and did do some seal cracking, and it looks a lot better out there. So thank you to them. And seeing no questions, roll call, please.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Sakala.
4.
Counselor Crisati.
4.
Counselor Hendrickson.
4.
Counselor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Mangini.
4.
Counselor Nasuda.
4.
Mayor Nelson.
4.
Deputy Mayor Pisner.
4.
Counselor Russo.
4.
And Counselor Santinella.
4.
11 in favor, none against.
Okay, thank you. The next is a resolution authorizing the town council to appoint a personnel search committee for the position of town manager. Whereas council wishes to appoint all 11 members of the council to the personnel search committee for the position of town manager. Now therefore be it resolved that the council authorizes the search committee to work with the town manager, acting town manager, interim town manager, and the assistant town manager / director of human resources to recruit for the position of town manager and to expend such sums that are necessary to conduct the recruitment and selection process. Date prepared 12/30/2024, prepared by the town manager's office.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. The town manager has decided to retire as of March 1st. Again, I think some of the residents have said it. I'm going to ask him right now, are you sure you want us to go through with this, Chris? Because I think you're doing a phenomenal job, and I'd hate to lose you.
Well, I very much appreciate that, but my concern is I don't want to wait till we get too close to the election, it becomes an issue. I get along very well with the Democrats, the Republicans, and I don't want that to devolve. Sometimes that happens in, the course of elections and the summertime, and then we would be left in the lurch. And I think we have a great opportunity. Enfield is in a tremendous position right now, I think, to move forward. Any man or woman would be greatly fortunate to come here. I think we have a tremendous amount to offer. So I want to start it now. And we had to pick a date, so I picked March 1st. It takes several months to do these types of searches today. And the HR director, assistant town manager will fill you in next time when the committee meets. I am committed to assist in every step of the way. I was available last time after I left. I talked to Steve and to Ellen many times. I offer that again. I will always be here for the town. I love the town. And as Matt Ritter said, 35 years, it goes by quickly. But I think it's time. I want us to be in a position that we have that opportunity. Let's go out, see what the recruitment process yields from across the country, and let's see if we can get a top-rate manager for a top-rate town. So at this juncture, I think we should move forward, and we can regroup at a later time. But thank you for your kind thoughts and words, everybody.
Well, I'm just going to say this. I think we have a top-rate manager, and that's you, Chris. So I think we should deny this, and then he can't retire. I mean, isn't that how this works? So.
Well, he did say that after he retires, he's consulting for free. So I guess he's really never leaving.
Any other questions? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Ungary.
Unfortunately, 4.
Counselor Sakala.
4.
Counselor Crisati.
4.
Counselor Hendrickson.
4.
Counselor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Mangini.
4.
Counselor Nasuda.
4.
Mayor Nelson.
4.
Deputy Mayor Pisner.
4.
Counselor Russo.
4.
And Counselor Santinella.
4.
11 in favor, none against.
Okay, thank you. Next is items for discussion. This is the pickleball courts. I didn't want to go forward with the resolution because I appreciate Donald getting us the numbers, but Councilman Crisati and myself had a conversation about the annex and the old tennis courts at the annex. Now, I did reach out to the, I'm going to say, the point person for the pickleball community, because she is the one who's been hounding all of us about the condition of the current pickleball. And when I mentioned this to her, she thought it was a phenomenal idea. Because of parking and other things, the tennis courts at the annex are in horrible shape. And I believe we have a serious parking issue at Mark Twain. So by removing the fences, all the pickleball equipment's brand new. We can move that to the annex and just convert the blacktop that's there to additional parking. I thought it was, and after talking to her, Bob, and I know I was a little pushy that because I like getting things done, but that was huge. So what I'm asking at this point is I'm asking for consent for you guys to allow me to take this back to DPW and let's get a price. It's probably going to cost us a little more because the tennis courts are bigger and we need to remove them all. But, you know, the construction cost should be similar. Now, there also was some discussion that the pickleball community was asking if they could donate money and add 2 more courts. Now, I don't think anybody up here would have a problem with that, but I don't think they realize we're talking $100,000 for 2 courts. So if you guys are okay, can we send this back to DPW, get the price to remove all the tennis court there and put in the original design for the pickleball courts?
Yes.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Can I just make a comment? Because we did talk about this in our caucus, and we do believe that going to the annex and looking at that is probably the best way to go. I will say I'm a little weary of removing those courts at Mark Twain. One, I think they should stay so they could be used while we're getting the annex up and ready to go first. I know we'll do it in phases, but I'm a little worried. I mean, it used to be pretty popular for tennis. If you think about it, we don't really have any tennis courts that the public can use right now, and I don't really want to, pave paradise and put up a parking lot. So I'm not, that's an old song, right? I'm not opposed to looking at the price. I don't know if I'm comfortable with getting rid of those courts. I'm comfortable with moving the pickleball complex, we're going to call it, because that's really what it's going to be over there, to the annex. I don't know that it doesn't sit well with me to get rid of them at Mark Twain right now, but that's my 2 cents.
Well, the whole reason we're doing something is because they're saying it's unsafe to play on. Right. So if we leave it there, they're still going to continue to play on it, or they're going to be back in here or calling us, wanting us to repair the one that we replaced. That's why by taking it and making it a parking lot, we're eliminating the risk of somebody, running and, go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, one of the issues that we've heard over the last couple of years, and it's even by the players, is the parking, the way that people come flying into the driveway, and it's pretty dangerous. They actually wanted to put up a sign, to say, all cars, slow, a big sign they wanted, to put up. Obviously, we can't accommodate all of that. But in terms of the parking, the lighting, the area, the number of courts that can be used at the annex, and plus that's our recreation department. And I'm sure our recreation director would love to have the complex, the indoor complex, plus the outdoor complex right there in the same vicinity, along with all the players. I see most of them on a daily basis, and they are a pretty demanding group, and I'll leave it at that. And I'm smiling saying it, but I think we should move forward with it. Yeah, I'm good with it.
Anybody else? Jeff?
Yeah, I'm in complete agreement with moving them over to annex, especially for the parking. I think just making extra parking would do well there. I mean, the residents, unfortunately, are always dealing with when all the sports are going on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. There's very limited parking, very congested, and people start parking in resident parking or visitor parking, and it kind of affects their quality of life and livelihood, and there's always complaints that are going on regarding
Mark Twain.
at Mark Twain, parking in the wrong area reserved for, for the residents and their families. So, the residents shouldn't have to deal with that on the weekends, and that's usually when people are available to visit them. And I'd be in favor of moving the pickleball courts over to the annex and then having some additional parking, make things a little bit safer over there, maybe do some redesigns so people aren't flying through there, and just allow for a little more space to park.
All right, so it seems like we got consensus to send that, so if you could have Donald start working on that, because I'd like to try to have that as a spring project. I do agree with Gina, we won't touch Mark Twain until the other court is completely done. And then maybe at that point, we can have a discussion on what we do with the Mark Twain court. But I think parking was a big, baseball, soccer, everything's there, and it's always a problem. So this could be a win-win. All right, thank you. Next is any other business proper to come before said meeting? Seeing none. And public communications, would anybody like to speak to the council? Walter, come on up.
Let me catch my breath. It took me a while to drive over here. Walter Cruzel, 21, Walter J. Cruzel, 21 Charlie Road. Happy New Year, everyone. So about half an hour ago, whatever it was, you were talking about the pre-ref thing. I turned to my wife, I said, I gotta go for a ride. Being on the high school building committee, also part of the JFK building committee, none of us knew what we were doing. That's why we hired professionals that sat down with everybody, had working groups with everybody. Mr. Rippers set it all up with the high school. Even when we did the high school, we didn't use the plan that was we started with the plan from the pre-ref, but when we hired an architect, they went through, questioned everybody, all the working groups, on how to combine the schools properly, what spaces they needed. We redesigned it, tweaked it. When it came to JFK, we did the same thing. They had the pre-ref, and then we had the joint facilities, took it the second time, and hired somebody, went through it. And then when the building committee took it, they tweaked it. But again, it was the architects had working relationships with all the different department heads and teachers to see what they wanted. It wasn't people on those committees that made any decisions. We went by the professionals. So to say that whatever, and again, I missed the vote because I literally jumped in the truck to get here. So I'm assuming it passed, but again. And then when it came to Eagle Academy, it was the same thing. There was kids leaving, being sent to different locations that couldn't make it back in time to participate in sports at the high school. And that was one of the biggest draws, was to get the kids back in town. And again, we hired professionals to tell us what we needed, and then we hired people afterwards to run what we needed and everything. But there is architect firms or any type of firms that have people on staff that know what they're doing, and they've been around the block where they've done it in different towns. So to have a bunch of teachers or whatever, and no offense to the teachers, but the teachers' input will be heard. So I just wanted to voice my opinion on that. Being, we had electricians on the high school building committee. I was a business owner, and I built a building, so I had some experience with that. But again, we had the people that we hired that literally spoke to everybody. So Happy New Year, everyone. Happy retirement, Mr. Town Manager.
Thank you, Walter.
Wow. What's the matter? Draft?
And these are brand new windows. Anyone else? Seeing none, Councilman Communications? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
All in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.